welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. That is Xan. That is Boomer Uncle Steve. Team Boomer, he has returned, and today we are going to do the team draft, the third annual team draft on the Saturday Scholars channel. Guys, how we doing today?
Doing good. We can't let you win again, Shoob. That's all I got to say about that. You keep winning on us, so it's time to change that.
I'm going for the three-peat, 3 for 3 here on this channel, on this little challenge here. So yeah, you guys need to step it up. Xan, I know you usually draft very well. You're usually in it till the very end. Team Boomer, last year, we'll call it a year zero. We'll call it a year zero.
I got triple-digit numbers, so that's what I'm happy about. Right at 100.
Well, now that you got a year under your belt, we're expecting a bounce-back performance here. And we also have a new team that we're competing against, and it is not going to be one of us. It's not even going to be a human. It's going to be a cyborg, a robot. So without further ado, gentlemen, let's get into it. This is how the team draft will work. So as you could see, for those of you who followed this challenge last year, the year before, it's pretty much the same exact format here. We have 12 roster spots, 1 for each conference. We have 5 Power 4 flex spots, 3 Group of 5 flex spots, and then 1 Super Flex. The Super Flex can be any FBS eligible team. Independents in Pac-12, i.e. the Pac-2, are not eligible for the G5 or Power 4 flex spots. So it kind of gives a little bit of roster strategy. So Super Flex can be Notre Dame, Oregon State, Washington State, UConn, if you really want to dip that further. But I don't know if we want to do that. You're probably going to lose the challenge if you draft UConn. But that's how it works. Pretty straightforward. And then we assign points like this. 1 point for every regular season win for every team that you draft. 1 point if your team makes a conference championship game appearance. Another point if they win the conference championship. So your conference champion will get 2 points. And then we have postseason points here. 1 for making a bowl game. 1 for making the playoff. 1 for a team that gets a bye, i.e. a conference champion. 1 for each playoff win. And then whoever wins the national championship will get an extra bonus point, essentially. So your national champion will have 2 points, 1 for winning a playoff game and 1 for being the national champion. So that'll give a little bit of hopefully tiebreakers at the end. So in the history of this draft, 2 out of 2 times, the champion has drafted the national champion. So we'll see if that trend changes this year. But that's pretty much the gist of it. Good bit of roster strategy. And our third team that we're competing against, Team Bot here, Team Bot is not a person. It is a computer. And Team Bot is essentially an auto draft team. And Team Bot, we will be using FPI projections based off of ESPN. And what we did here is we put together our scoring system and tied it together as best as possible with ESPN's FPI projections. So this gives a pretty good estimate as to how these teams will finish according to our scoring system and according to ESPN's FPI. So whenever it's Team Bot's turn, we will be selecting the highest available team for Team Bot, or once we get into the later rounds, we have a little bit of parameters here. So Team Bot at least has a little bit of strategy. So it'll be 3 humans versus 1 computer this time around. So a little bit of interesting strategy there. Hopefully we don't lose to Team Bot. I do not expect Team Bot to win this thing, but if Team Bot does, that's a big problem for all of us. So, all right, guys, are we ready to get going?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's go. So starting at the top, Team Shoob, I got the number 1 pick. You guys are going to try to prevent me from drafting the national champion and winning this thing 3 years in a row. Well, I get the number 1 pick, so what am I going to do? I'm going to try to draft a national champion with my number 1 pick. And for me, it was 1A, 1B. And my 1A is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Welcome to Team Shoob. I think Ohio State, you can make a case they are the best team in the country. I think they're just as good as Georgia, and I think that their path to getting to the playoff and potentially winning the national championship could be better than Georgia's, given Georgia's schedule. Pins and needles there, but I really like Ohio State, and I really think the storyline of Ohio State winning a national championship right after Michigan does would be pretty cool. And Ryan Day finally getting over the hump. I don't believe the Ryan Day hate, and I think that he gets over the hump here. So Xan, you kind of got it laid on a silver platter for you at the 2 spot here.
That's true because it is 1A, 1B, and I guess I have to go with 1B, which would be the Georgia Bulldogs.
Georgia goes off the board at number 2. So now Team Bot is on the board. So Team Bot, again, pretty simple here. Let's flip over to the ESPN FPI projections. So it's very simple. Rounds 1 through 5, Team Bot will simply just draft the best available team according to total points. So who's the number 1 team? And actually,
Oregon.
ESPN's FPI has Oregon as the number 1 team on the board. So there you go. Team Bot is going to get its highest team. So Team Bot gets the Oregon Ducks. Pretty fitting that I made their color green. Let me take off those caps there. And now Team Boomer, you're on the 4-5 on the end around, so you get back-to-back picks here. This is a snake draft format, of course.
Yeah, so now I'm supposed to take Texas Longhorns? What? Don't we see what's going on back here?
You don't have to
Okay.
take them.
Conflict of interest.
I know it's all 1, 2, 3. And I don't believe in Texas Longhorns like the rest of the country. I don't know if that's because of my bias, but I don't see Quinn Ewers as a great quarterback. I don't see him as a top 7 quarterback. He's like a top 15 quarterback. And he lost a lot. So I'm going to go with Notre Dame Fighting Irish
Notre Dame.
for my 4 pick.
Definitely the best super flex available, and they're probably a playoff team, so there's good upside with that pick.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then it gets more complicated now. So I'm going to, based on the performance of Florida State yesterday against Georgia Tech, I'm going to take Clemson. I think they've got
ACC.
I know I got burned on them last year. I got burned on Notre Dame last year. And I kind of figured this is how it was going to go for this pick and these picks. And I thought, well, I'll just get burned on them 2 years in a row.
Let's get burned.
I love it.
Double down.
Hey, you know, Notre Dame, I think, is very good pick. I had them at number 4 on my big board overall, and that's mainly because
I was going to grab Notre Dame in either round 2 or 3. I was just depending on how it played out. So I think it was a good pick.
Clemson is interesting. They have the best overall roster in the ACC in terms of talent, but the ACC definitely is a little open at the top. But yeah, this is where I think we're starting to make some more difficult choices here. So let's flip it back to Team Bot here. What do we got? Team Bot, best available team. Well,
Texas Longhorns.
The Sooner fan here let Team Bot gobble up Texas. So Team Bot is off to, I'd say, a pretty good start in Oregon and Texas. And hey, it may or may not work out for him, but I'd say that's a pretty good start for Team Bot right there.
I'm looking at my tier list here, and it actually gets a little bit tough from this point on. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double down on the SEC. And this is going to kill you, Shoob. I'm taking the Rebs, Ole Miss, flex spot.
Ole Miss.
All that talent they have.
Yeah, I had them as my 3rd best team in the SEC, and I like them to make the playoffs. So that's a good pick there, Xan. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of contenders in the SEC, but that's not a bad pick right there. So now, looking at my big board, coming back to me on the 8-9 swing. So Texas is off the board. Let me cross them out, and Ole Miss as well. So I actually think I have an opportunity to make a little bit of roster strategy choice here. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to double down on the Big Ten like Xan did, and I'm going to take Penn State at number 8. Now, I already have Ohio State, of course, but I like Penn State as my first flex spot, and I like them to get 10 wins and potentially make the college football playoff. And then my next pick is going to be, it's between 2 teams that I have kind of in the same tier before I have a drop-off, and I think this is where the G5, let's break the G5 barrier, boys. Who do you think I'm taking here?
Liberty.
I'm taking Liberty.
Yep, that's a great pick. That was my
It's
top G5 team. Yep.
it's such an easy schedule, and no, they don't have upside to make a run in the playoff, but I'll take that upside to win 10, 11 games in the regular season, win Conference USA, which is a very bad league, and then probably make the playoff or at least have a good shot to make the playoff as the G5. So I like my chances there with Liberty to just rack up points.
I agree. That is a good spot. Um, Damn you, Shoob. I was gonna take Liberty. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna go for another share here. I'm gonna get a little greedy because I'm going for playoff spots, and I think this conference is gonna get the most teams in. So I'm tripling down in the SEC. I'm going with Alabama.
Oh
Ooh,
man.
they were the
Wow.
next team. They were the next team that I had it was between them and Liberty for me. So I like that. Alabama off the board. Yeah, that's a good pick, Zan. That's a pretty good pick. All right, back to Team Bot. Let's look at the FPI here. Oof, this is a tough one.
Florida State.
Florida State is the highest projected team for Team Bot, but you know what? I think we will. Let's be reasonable here. We know that we're recording this a day after week 0. I say that we
Give them the
give
Tigers.
Team Bot one mulligan. I say we give Team Bot one mulligan, and we go down to Missouri. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna manually bump Florida State down here to, let's say, they already lost the game. So
So
let's
like
say they're gonna
7.9 instead of 8.9.
yeah, let's bump them down one game because they lost. The bot doesn't know that. So let's do that. And then I'm gonna do there we go. So now Florida State's like down here with these guys. I think that's pretty fair. So there we go. Okay, so now Florida State bumped down a little bit, little manual adjustment there, which is fine. So Team Bots, next draftee is the Missouri Tigers. Welcome to Team Bot. And Missouri is one of those SEC teams that could sneak in as an at-large. Don't know if they're necessarily good enough to win the SEC. That's going to be pretty tough, but they got a favorable schedule. So Team Bot, Oregon, Texas, Missouri. Not bad. Not bad start for them.
Not bad
All
at all.
right.
Pretty good spot.
Boomer on the swing around.
So on my list, my next team up is the Oklahoma Sooners, and I picked them third last year, and they were my best pick.
They were.
But they have the toughest in conference schedule of any team in the country, uh, excluding your non conference games. Of course, Florida has the toughest schedule.
That's
So
right.
I am reluctant to pick the Sooners for that reason. And my next up is after the Sooners is Tennessee. So I'm going to take Tennessee.
It's a
Ooh,
solid pick. Yeah. He
I like
picked.
the
I mean,
upside there.
Shu picked Nico to win the Heisman. So if that's going to be the facts, Tennessee's going to be popping off.
Well, he
And
doesn't know that yet because we haven't put that video out. But yes,
Oh.
Nico Imileva is my Heisman pick this year. So I like the upside with Tennessee for sure. Their secondary is definitely questionable, but I like the upside there.
so we've got 5 SEC
Team
teams already picked.
Team Bot's
It's a good.
going.
It is a good conference,
No,
especially this year. It
6.
is deep.
It's 6 SEC teams already picked, and they won't get more than 5 in, and probably 4 into the playoff. Here's another team that I picked last time. I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks. Rock Chalk
Jayhawks, Rock
Jayhawk.
Chalk.
Ooh, Kansas. Yeah, this one is very, I would say, dependent on Jalen Daniels' health. But if he does stay healthy throughout the year, I mean, this could be a Big 12 championship contender right here. And if I recall, they did get one sort of a lighter Big 12 draw, like in terms of conference schedule strength. So, yes, that one's going to be very dependent on quarterback health. But if you do get quarterback health, that's going to end up being a good pick. All right.
Yeah.
Next up is Team Bots. So Kansas is off the board. So Team Bots heading to the G5. UTSA. Wow. UTSA, it has at 10.5 projected points. And again, that's ESPN's FPI. So Team Bot look at Team Bot. That's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 4 of its top 9 picks on the big board. That if Team Bot's big board ends up being correct, then Team Bot is having an A+ draft so far because it's got 4 of its top 9. So that's pretty crazy. So Team Bot is getting UTSA. That one's a tough sell on me personally because still got Jeff Traylor there as the head coach, but they lost Frank Harris, and that's I don't know. That's a tough sell on me, but we'll see. We'll see if it works out for Team Bot.
Well, I already know who I want. I feel like I'd be silly to do this, especially since there's a significant drop off in this league after this team. And even though this team isn't what they were last year, I got to go with the Michigan Wolverines. Um, they're clearly the next best team in the Big Ten, so I got to at least hedge a little bit and give myself a chance at a playoff team. And if things work out, potentially a conference championship berth.
Not bad there. Yeah, that's a high floor team for sure. Probably win you 9 games, maybe 10, maybe 8. Worst case scenario. All right. Man, Zan's draft is looking a little bit like mine did last year. Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Michigan. That's pretty good. All right. So the SEC has just been completely rated, and I don't have any shares of the SEC. So that's honestly that's kind of tough. So
Boomer.
there is one more team, maybe two, that I think I could, if I get lucky here, maybe get back into the mix there.
I know exactly who they are, Shub.
You know who, you see, this is the thing. You and I know exactly who we like. That's a problem. But
I haven't seen that video yet.
we have not seen those videos yet. That is true. So I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go this route, and hopefully this doesn't come back to bite me. But yeah, I don't really like where I'm sitting here, but this is what I'm gonna do. Two teams that I feel a little shaky about, but they could work out for me. One is I'm gonna get my first SEC share, and that's Texas A&M.
Yeah, I had a
I,
feeling. Yep, that was the next best, I think, like in
I
terms of
think
upside.
I think Texas A&M with Connor Wegman coming back, hopefully fully healthy this year. I
Good
think
coach
that's
too.
good coaching staff. I think Texas A&M could be a sleeper team in the SEC. Maybe get into the playoff if things go well for them, but I got to go there. And then my next pick is going to be I could go a lot of directions here, and I think I'm gonna hold off on what I was originally gonna do. So I'm gonna go for a high floor pick in the Big 12, and I'm gonna go with Utah.
That's a good pick. I was going to take Utah, so that's a good pick.
Yeah, again, not I don't know if it's like cut and dry, just them and everybody else. I think it's Utah and a few other teams that can win the Big 12, but because of their schedule, I think Utah actually is a high floor team that has a pretty good shot to win 9, 10 games. I mean, they got Cam Rising, Keithy coming back. Like,
Is Cam Rising
hopefully it
going to
goes
play
up.
this year?
Yep.
He is, yes. He's back
Okay.
for he's like
I kept waiting
25.
last year every week. Never
He's
showed
actually
up.
back for real this time. So
Yep, he's back for real this time, and we'll see what that looks like for them. I'm just looking at my big board here, and damn you, Shoob, I was going to take Utah, so now I actually have to think a little bit. Um, hmm, you know, you know, I think, I think it's time for me to possibly dip a little bit into the G5. I'm going to go with the Boise State Broncos.
oh, oh, man. You know what, San? My struggle with those last two picks was between Texas A&M or Utah and Boise State. I was like, do I want to get the team that I think is cut like for sure the best team in the Mountain West and my G5 playoff pick, or do I want to get Utah, who I think is a high floor Big 12 team that's going to get me like 9, 10 points minimum? That's tough.
And potentially a playoff spot.
That's tough. That you and I were thinking on the exact same wavelength there. Good pick. That's a great pick. I was really hoping that they would come back to me on the swing around, but clearly whoever between Utah and Boise, whoever I drafted, you were going to take immediately after. So you and
Exactly.
I were
On
thinking
my big board,
exactly.
it was they were right next to each other. So,
Man, did you get a copy of my big board, man? Stealing my homework.
what about Team Bot, man?
Team
Team Bot
bots.
double dipping, James Madison.
Team bots. So now that we are in round 5, so this is the last round where we're gonna have Team Bot take the best overall team off the board. So Team Bot is gonna take James Madison. Yes, that's correct. So Team Bot's dipping in the G5, with the point system, and it thinks that James Madison is, they lost their head coach to Indiana, Kurt Signetti, and they lost like basically over half their team to Indiana, but. Team Bot's saying that JMU is not going to skip a beat. They're still going to be running the Sun Belt. So, I mean, hey, I don't think they have an NCAA restriction on them to get to the
Yeah,
postseason
finally.
finally. But I don't know, Teambot may be 1 year behind here, but it's definitely hoping that this is like a 2022 season for UTSA and JMU. We'll see if it works out for them.
It always comes down to the teams that I hate. I don't have a Big Ten team on my list yet. And the next one up from on my list is USC.
We know you love Lincoln Riley, right?
Yeah, I love the fraudulent trader. That's what Paul Feinbaum called him, a fraud. Man,
You can make an argument. That's
You
for sure.
could.
You can make a pretty good argument
okay.
for there.
I'm gonna take Iowa as my Big
Ooh,
Ten pick.
I like
Here.
it. Iowa Voodoo. Phil Parker.
And hopefully they can score some points with their offense this year.
We
That's
say
the
that
biggest
every year.
limiting factor for them. But they at least got a new OC this year, so we'll see.
All right, I'm gonna go back to the Big 12. I'm gonna take Kansas State Wildcats.
That's a good pick.
Kansas State off the board.
The Sunflower State teams.
That's right. He's got Kansas and Kansas State. Not bad there. All right, back to Team Bot. So now that we are in round 6 through 12, we are going to go for Team Bot's highest total points in order. So basically, it is the best available team that is one of these open slots that it still has. So Xan, Florida State, or let's do this. Tell me which conferences or G5, how many that it has open.
So Team Bot needs a Big 12 or an ACC team.
Big 12 or ACC. Well, look at that. We downgraded Florida State manually, but here they are coming back to Team Bot. And you know what? So I was going to say this,
There's still
but
upside for them to make it to the. I mean, that's a non-con game. They can still win their conference. They can still do all that. So
exactly. I think that team that Florida State might have been a good buy low here just because we saw them lose in week 0, which is when weird stuff usually happens. Doesn't mean that this team could turn it around and end up finishing like 10-2 and 9-3. In fact, I trust Norvell there. So I feel like Florida State will get it together. But yeah, poor showing in week 0. So maybe a good buy low there from Team Bot. This could end up being a brilliant buy low from Team Bot. So there we go. All right, back to Team Xan.
I too have to fill an ACC spot. I'm taking NC State.
Oh, that's your ACC champion right there. Well, the ACC has finally been tapped into here, so might as well keep going with my ACC champion after your ACC champion. I'm gonna go with
Vatek.
Virginia Tech.
Yep.
And you know what, Zan, I might as well just double down here on the ACC.
Miami.
Even though I hate this team and I don't like their fans, I'm gonna go with Miami. I'm throwing up
That's
to
a
you.
smart pick. I was gonna take Miami on the swing back, so that's smart. Now that I have to think. Now I have to think, Shoob. Damn you, Shoob.
Double tap in the ACC. Actually,
I was really
quadruple tap in the ACC. 4 ACC teams in a row. This was quite a run.
Man, that was the last team I had in that tier, Miami. So I am a little upset. Let me see here. Now this gets a little dicey, man. It gets a little tough from here. Looking at my God, man. This is like probably I think this is the hardest pick I'm gonna have to make, like to this point. Let's see, I've got two P4 flex spots left, and I still have to fill the Big 12. I'm gonna go ahead and get a value pick at P4 flex. I don't think this is gonna get me any playoff points or anything, but I'm chasing maybe a potential conference championship berth if things go right, and that's gonna be Louisville.
Louisville. All right. 5 ACC teams in a row. Man. All right. Time to throw it back to Team Bot. So I would hope that the ACC champion just got taken here in one of these few rounds. And then Clemson up
Team
there.
Bot does need a Big 12 team, so that would be like Arizona.
So Team Bot just needs a Big 12. It doesn't need SEC or Big 10.
They're filled on everything except for Big 12.
So who is the highest Big 12 team? There
Arizona.
it is. Arizona.
Yep.
All right. I like the way this logic's playing out so far for Team Bot. I think that's actually at this stage, Arizona, I think is a pretty quality pick, right?
It
That
is.
could be the Big 12 champion. So
It absolutely could be. They're
I'm
pretty good.
listen, Team Bot's holding its water right now. I like
Absolutely,
it.
they are.
My first pick on this round is going to be Memphis.
That's a good pick.
Ooh,
Memphis
That's a
Tigers.
really good pick.
that's a good pick. Yep.
Yeah, that's an excellent pick.
They're my next highest G5.
Yep, same. I was probably going to get him on the roundabout, but it didn't come back.
And for the next pick, we'll go LSU Tigers.
That's a good pick.
Good pick.
Good
Good
value
pick.
pick.
Very good pick there.
They could still end up being like a surprise team that could make the SEC championship. So I think that's definitely a good pick.
They were the last like high ceiling team that I had in my on my big board in this tier before there was like a huge before I ended my high end big board. So two phenomenal picks right there by Team Boomer. Very good. All right, so LSU off the board. So back to Team Bots. What do we got here? So Xan, how's their roster looking?
They've got one of everything, so now they can basically kind of just go with the highest. So Team Bot roster, they need a Power 4 flex pretty bad. They don't have a single one. They've got two G5 flexes, so I think the highest P4 team is probably where we want to go for them.
Oh man. So
OU,
Team Bot is gonna be riding the Sooner Schooner. Team
Oklahoma for Team Bot.
I'm surprised at the discipline Team Boomer there for not taking your school.
Yeah, it's the schedule.
It is a very tough schedule that they got. That is for sure. The SEC, I don't know what the SEC, what did they do to deserve that schedule? And then they gave Texas one of the slightly easier schedules in the
Yeah,
SEC.
I cannot find any details on how this black box determines the schedule. The only thing I've been able to find is that they take into account your record for the last 10 years. And Texas has sucked for 9 of the last 10 years. That's why they got the easy schedule. And you look at Alabama and Georgia and OU, and they've got some of the best schedules of the
That's
last
right.
10 years, or best performance of the last 10 years. And that's why the Sooners have gotten the toughest schedule, and Alabama and Georgia can't play themselves, so they get a little bit easier conference schedule. But their schedules are tough, and this is really the toughest schedule Georgia has faced in probably 5 years since 2019.
Oh yeah, 100%.
When you look at certainly the last 3 years, so
Absolutely.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to make a little bit of a strategic pick here. Um, I'm going to give myself a chance of potentially having two people in the same conference potentially playing in the championship game, or at least hedging my bets here. I'm going to go with Fresno State.
Fresno State. Interesting. Yeah, I know their coach, I know Tedford, he had to step down at the beginning of the year, but it doesn't mean it's a bad team. It's still a really good team, but yeah, it's going to be them. I had them and then another team along with Boise in the Mountain West, another unnamed team that I may or may not draft. So not bad at all. That's just a solid program right there. So Zane, I was a little worried that you were going to go a certain direction. I'm kind of glad you didn't go that way. So my Big 12 champion is still on the board here. And I think if you've watched the channel, if you know who my Big 12 champion is, let's head up to Ames.
Iowa
Iowa
State.
State. I think they are a dark horse this year to win the Big 12, and I picked them to win the Big 12 along with Utah. So I have my predicted Big 12 championship game, Iowa State and Utah. And I knew I could probably wait a little bit on Iowa State because I knew I was the high man on them. So I'm happy to get them there. Now, next is a little interesting here. So the board is kind of all over the place, really. This is where it's really kind of like I feel where we're
Yeah, just shooting darts at this point.
yeah, so I still have two G5 flexes, and I think I need to go that direction. So there is one team that I think is kind of, sort of the best team in the MAC, but it's not, it's debatable. But I don't like that I'm dipping in the MAC here this early, but I'm gonna go with Miami of Ohio.
It's a good
I'm gonna
pick.
go with
yeah,
Miami of Ohio. So I got both Miamis. I got Miami Florida and Miami, Ohio. But yeah, I not feeling too great about that one, but my rankings have them pretty high, so I gotta do it.
I'm not feeling great about this one, but I do recognize that there's very slim pickings for the super flex position. Um, I'm going to take another G5. I'm going to go App State.
Oh, good pick. App State's burned me the last few years in a row, but you know what? It is what it is. I do like that pick though. I mean, clear-cut contender for the Sun Belt. All right.
All right. So, Team
Team
Bot
Bot.
can use a bunch of flexes.
So you know what? SMU is the highest team on the board for Team Bot, and you know what? They did have a rough week 0 showing against Nevada. They still won that game, but
And they still
again,
could get it together.
this is a buy. This is a buy low. That their schedule is pretty easy. Their schedule is pretty easy, and Team Bot is this. See, this is the perfect non-human experience because the human's going to look at week 0 and let that influence their decisions, and the bot's just not letting that influence its decision. It's going to take SMU, and you know what? I think that Team Bot may have two really good week 0 buy lows here that could end up paying off for it.
I'm going to take Tulane Green Wave.
Green Wave,
That
baby.
pick. It'll give me a G5. And I'm going to take Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Oh, wow.
I did not think he would do that. I thought I was going to be able to get him on the way back.
I know.
I thought he was gonna spite, like not sp out of spite, not pick them. So I thought I was gonna be able to get him on the swing back.
Yeah, despite I don't have
That's a great
hatred
pick.
for Oklahoma State like a lot of people think I would have. So whenever they played somebody else, I'd always want them to win. So
That's such a great pick, Boomer. I was gonna pick them. Damn it.
I know I kind of gave you like 9
because
tries,
they have a pretty
Yeah.
high win total too, man. So I thought it was actually a pretty good chance there.
I mean, we are in the
Hey,
10th round, so like he did give you a lot of time to pick him. But
I know. Well, I didn't think he was gonna pick them, and I knew you already dipped in the Big 12, so I'm like, I can just wait and get them late. Like,
I would have been eyeing him at this point too. I think that was decent value right there. All right, back to Team Bot. So Xan,
they need a super flex, a G5, or a P4 flex, and I think Oregon State is the highest ranked. So
look at that. It needs a super flex, and the highest team on the board for Team Bot happens to be a super flex only eligible team, Oregon State. And you know what? I don't think that's a bad pick. I know they lost a ton, but they're now essentially playing like a full G5 schedule,
yeah, I
and they're
like
just
that
playing
pick.
a bunch of Mountain West teams. So I think that's a solid, very solid pick for Team Bot right there. Team Bot is doing a great job, I think,
Team
guys.
Bot is doing a great job.
I'm actually a little worried. I'm actually a little worried now. I really am.
Well, my hand is kind of forced here, man. I got to take the team with the best upside remaining for the Big 12. There are a few teams that you could argue for this spot, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Red Raiders of Texas Tech.
Texas Tech.
They disappointed last year. I don't know if they're going to get it together for this year or not.
My options are slim right now for the Big 12.
This slate,
need
I
a-
actually really like that pick. I think there's upside there. If Bayron Morton stays healthy, they could make a Big 12 championship run if he stays healthy. I'm personally higher on Texas Tech than most other people, but yeah, it is a big if, but we'll see, man. This would be the third year in a row that one of us gets burned on Texas Tech in this draft and in team totals. So it's
Yes.
like, yeah. All right. Well, now the board is just it really is wide open, isn't it?
It is. It's
it is
really hard
wide
at this
open.
point.
So I'm going to take a little quick peek at my roster sheet now because we have to worry about this. So I have 3 picks left. So now you guys have 2 picks left. So we really have to fill in whatever we have left. So we're kind of limited here. So I have 1 G5 flex spot left to go, and I think I'm going to nap them up right here because I'm worried about Team Boomer and Team Bot. They still have 1 more G5 spot open. So I just want to hope that they don't steal my team here. And I don't have a Sunbelt team. And I think
Troy.
it is not Troy. My
Oh.
highest rated G5
Well, then you have to worry
team
about
left.
Team Bot stealing them.
That's true, but I don't know. I'm going to pretend like I don't know that. in fairness to Team Bot. But my highest rated Sun Belt team and my highest rated G5 team available is still on the board. And I think that they are a sleeper and a dark horse to make the college football playoff.
Texas State?
Oh boy. Texas State,
Mm.
Really?
Bobcats. Texas
GJ
State.
Kinney over there. You got GJ Kinney taking the Bobcats far.
I got them as my number one team in the Sun Belt by a hair over App State. And yeah, I think there's some sleeper potential here with Texas State. So I like that pick. All right. Next up is going to be me. And now I am simply super flex and power four flex. So it's really just open for anything. So I'm going to, looking at the power five board here. Oof, man, this is tough. The ACC really has been rated, but you know what? The Big Ten hasn't been rated as deep as I thought it would. And the thing with the Big Ten is, I mean, somebody's got to win some of these games, right?
There is upside in the
There's
conference.
the Big 12's kind of gone a little bit deeper than I thought. There's still some good Big 12 teams on the board. I'm gonna go with a team that I actually took their under and win totals, but for a team draft purposes, I'm gonna take the shot that maybe their quarterback ends up being a stud, and they could win 7 or 8, maybe 9 games. Nebraska.
I have them on my list as well. That one's a little risky, but if it pans out, that can be a great, great pick.
Yeah, and I think at this stage, I mean, we're in round 11. This is where you got to take those shots on those upside teams that are still available. And
Hmm.
yeah, the Big Ten I don't think hasn't been tapped into as deep as I thought it would have. And Nebraska's my upside team that, hey, if Rayola ends up being a stud, this thing could click pretty well for me. So
Yep. And that's why for me, I'm looking, and I'm still going to go for upside. And I'm still going to say because this conference I think is a little bit wide open from top to almost the bottom. It's going to be the Big 12. I'm going to have to dip again, and this time I think I'm going to go with UCF.
I was waiting for that one. UCF also could be a Big 12 dark horse right there, and getting him in the second to last round, pretty good. All right, off to Team Bot. So, what is Team Bot looking at here, Zan? What do we have left for
Team
it?
Bot needs a P4 flex or a G5 flex, so it looks like they're
Ah,
a Troy Trojans fan today.
so let me ask you this: does Team Bot have a Sun Belt team or a MAC team? Who are its other two
They
G5s?
have James Madison and UTSA.
Ah, okay. So I think because this is like barely Toledo, Troy's a hair above Toledo because it already has a Sun Belt team. I feel like, in fairness to the Bot, we should
Give it
give
Toledo.
it Toledo
Okay.
because it doesn't have a MAC team. Is that fair with everyone?
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I mean they're essentially rated exactly the same, 0.05 off. So let's give it Toledo. They don't have DeQuan Finn anymore, but I think that's a fair pick right there for Team Bot. And I
They're
mean
one of the better
Toledo's
teams in the
still
MAC still. Yeah.
one of the best programs in the MAC for sure. They still have a shot to win the thing. I mean, they won it last year. So there we go. So Team Bot just needs what, a P5 flex, and
Team Bot
it's
has a
done.
great team.
I'm a little worried, boys. I'm a little worried, fellas. All right, Team Boomer, ready to close out your roster.
Well, I'm gonna go with Troy.
Oh,
Troy.
that's why you were being quiet right there.
He's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
He's like,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
go ahead and
Don't take
give
Troy. Yeah,
Team
take
Bot
Toledo.
Now that we're on this last round, there's two teams, one team in particular that we are notorious for never drafting on this team draft, even though they're always like right there, and we say it every year. And then there's
Who's
another
that?
team. Well, I'm not going to say it.
He's
There's
like, give
another
me the
team,
answer.
and there's another team that I know that Team Boomer will definitely not take. That I think that we may not necessarily be as high on them, but I think the casual fan would think we're idiots for not taking them in this draft.
Yeah, I know a lot of people think idiots not to take USC, right?
Maybe.
They just, their whole defense is a question. And I don't think, and if you looked at, well, if you look at Lincoln Riley's performance over the last 8 years, 6 years, well, 8 years, even as an OC, it's been going down, 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 down as an offense. and we know what the defense has been like. Auburn, I mean, they got next year. I think that I might take Auburn next year, but not this year. Gators, too tough a schedule.
Yeah,
North
don't
Carolina,
take them. Definitely don't take them. We're not going that deep.
North Carolina. I've already got. I've only got one ACC team that could give me another one.
I say
You've got
I
a Power
think
Four flex, so it's got to be a Power Four team. So
Yeah. So I got Washington Huskies would qualify.
they would.
West Virginia.
They're
I'm gonna
there.
take West Virginia.
I think that's a good pick. That's
Mountaineers.
a value pick.
you're going to
They
take
could
West
potentially
Virginia.
surprise. Yeah,
Yeah.
they could potentially surprise this year. They did last year.
Yeah.
That is
I
true.
think that's a testament to the good coaching.
They do have the toughest schedule in the Big 12, though. That is the only problem is they got the toughest Big 12 draw. That's why their win total is lower than the rest of them. But in terms of talent, they're right up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. And all those other teams that you mentioned are definitely ones that I'm eyeing as myself. But I have the last pick, so it doesn't really matter what I end up saying.
And North Carolina to Team Bot
So
to
how
fill
about
that
that?
last
UNC,
B4.
I was like, someone's gonna take UNC because nobody ever takes them on this draft, and they're always like right up there at the every year at the end of every round, and we never take them. So finally, Team Bot is gonna take UNC. So there we go.
I'm taking TCU. My final pick. I'm
Oh
gonna triple dip and hopefully get maybe one person in the Big 12 championship game.
man, TCU. That's the highest team that I had left on my board after North Carolina. Yeah, I like that a lot. And now I'm presented with there's only one team, actually, there's two teams that I think are reasonable candidates here. One of them is one that I think is going to be a lot worse than what everybody else thinks. We've already mentioned their name. And the other one is a team that I still like a whole lot, even though that, yes, they might be a team that puts the chips on the table in 2025. So it is
Auburn.
between USC and Auburn.
Yep.
And for the same reasons that Team Boomer here explained, I can't take USC. Hopefully, I don't look like an idiot for not taking them, but I'm going to take Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn. I like Hugh Freeze, and I trust him to win me like 7 games, hopefully. So there we go. Auburn rounds out the team draft.
Yeah, if there was another round here, I would definitely have USC in my radar, but there is not.
Absolutely. And then I feel like that's what always happens is we always get down to this tier at the very end, and it's kind of like, well, if this just extended another round or two, I would definitely be scooping up USC. I mean, that's just too much upside if it does end up going well for them not to pick. So now that we've reached the end, fellas, let's go through a few teams that maybe we didn't pick that you thought were definitely worthy of being picked here. I have a handful. We already been talking about them. I know first and foremost, USC, definitely a team that could have been picked, but they're not picked. Um, but what else? What else do we think is a team that could have been
I mean,
picked here?
potentially Washington State because they're playing a G5 schedule now, basically.
They had the most points remaining on my big board, but I have a hard time trusting it. I didn't do my due diligence on them either. So Washington State was right up there, but I agree with you. In the
Possibly
Big Ten,
Kentucky.
yeah, Kentucky was the next. They were the only other SEC team that I even put on my big board, and it
Yeah.
was like after Kentucky, I'm not drafting any more SEC teams. So Kentucky definitely a minor sleeper team. I think they could have been picked. In the Big 12, I think the only other team that would have been worthy of a flyer would have been Colorado.
Hmm.
I think if you extend another round or two in the Big Ten, definitely Washington. And I thought Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin is that might be one we look a little dumb for not picking them, even though they do have a tough schedule. I mean USC as well. But the Big Ten is just so top heavy that I feel like we didn't really need to dip deep into the Big Ten because we already got the teams that we know are going to compete for the championship. And in the ACC, we kind of went a little deep in the ACC. We went 8 deep. And I had 3 teams that I put on my big board. And one was Cal, who was definitely a sleeper team I would have picked up in the next round. Syracuse, even though I don't like Syracuse, their schedule is just so freaking easy that Syracuse could have gotten you at least like a bowl team and a bowl point. And then obviously Georgia Tech, I bumped them up onto my big board, even though I wouldn't have considered them earlier after beating Florida State. But I still think Georgia Tech is, a fringe bowl team because of the difficulty of their schedule. And then how about G5? Are there any G5 teams that we thought just missed?
Hmm. University of Louisiana Lafayette, I've considered, but ultimately, because there's only three G5 spots, I mean, I wasn't really going to land on it.
Yeah. And I knew we wouldn't go that deep here, but I figured in the American, I thought UAB and Rice were two teams that if we had a little bit deeper of a format, would have scooped them up. UNLV in the Mountain West. I think UNLV is could be a minor sleeper in the Mountain West. And
Except
then
UNLV lost their best quarterback to USC. That's the only reason I was a little reluctant to go for them.
true. And then in the Sun Belt, in addition to ULL, I had South Alabama. All right. Well, our last little wrap up here before we end this thing is, guys, let's talk about our team. So I'll ask each of you, who do you think objectively has the best team, and how do you feel about your own team? So start with Team Boomer.
I think Xan does.
He had a pretty good draft, and I like the spot that he was sitting in at the 2 spot because I think it was after round 4 when he took Michigan, and then I was looking at my team and I realized that there was a huge drop off when I had to go with my back to back, and that he had scooped up. I was like, Zan's looking pretty good so far. And then he took Boise State on the swing around, which was another team that I was eyeing. I mean, yeah, Zan, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. I mean, that top 3 is just.
Someone's making the playoff in that group.
I mean, all
Oh
So.
three of
yeah,
them. I mean,
yeah, all
if all
three of
three of
those
them
would
make the
make it.
playoff, yeah. I mean, Alabama still has national championship upside. I mean, I don't think anybody expects Michigan to repeat what it did last year, but Michigan could still be a playoff team.
Yeah, they could sneak in at that 12 spot or 11 spot or whatever.
You got one of the best G5s for sure in Boise State. NC State, we like a lot. I mean, Louisville, very solid. They're not just going to fall off a cliff. They could compete for the ACC, considering how that conference is looking so far. And then Fresno State, high floor, App State, high floor team, Texas Tech, good sleeper pick, UCF, good sleeper pick, TCU, good. I mean, I don't see. I think you had a very good draft, Sand.
My only thing here is the triple dipping into the Big 12 is risky. It's like high risk, high reward. I'm like trying to get a team in the championship game, but there is like a chance all these guys end up being like 6-win teams. So
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's smart because if they're you're not going to do this in the SEC, you're not going to do this in the Big Ten, and you're not going to do this in the ACC. But in the Big 12, you kind of do want to do that because all 3 of those teams could compete for the conference at the end of the year. So if there is a conference where you're going to triple dip and take a bunch of flyers, it is the Big 12. I think that was very smart.
I quadruple dipped into the Big 12. So if 2 of those make it to the championship game, then I'll be sitting good with points.
That is
that
true.
Oklahoma State pick upsets me so much. I really thought I was going to be able to get them on the way back.
I'm sorry, but I gave you chances.
Uh,
And
I was like, oh, the OU fan, he's not taking Oklahoma State. Like, I literally thought that, and then like his first pick, he's like Oklahoma State. I'm like, oh.
I'm surprised it was available actually by
Well,
round
see, I
10.
was gonna. If I thought you would have taken them, I would have taken them, like right
Uh,
there. But
yeah, I
I was
consider him
playing.
number three in the
Yeah,
Big 12. So
yeah. No, they've got a good win total too.
Yeah, Team
Um,
Boomer, I think you definitely had a way better draft than you did last year for sure. I think you did really well in the middle of the draft. I think where you those back to backs where you picked up Iowa, Kansas State, Memphis, LSU. I think you had a really good middle of the draft there because I mean you got LSU in round 8. That could be a team that ends up playing for the SEC championship game, makes the playoff, and then Memphis could end up being the best G5 team, and they're probably the best team in the American. And then obviously you got Kansas State, Big 12 contender, Iowa up there as well. I mean, I liked your middle of the draft a lot. I think your only problem is Notre Dame, Clemson, Tennessee. They may not have that like high end, like win the national championship upside, but they're teams that could give you upside to make the playoff or at least maybe make a little bit of a run. But I don't know if those teams will compete with like the Georgias and Ohio States at the end or the Oregons,
yeah, it may
but
not be
maybe.
national championship, but I think we're looking first round and second round of the playoffs. Certainly first round. Clemson at home, Tennessee at home. If they get in the 5 through 8 slots, Notre Dame 5 through 8. It can't be a 1 through 4. So those home wins in the playoffs are going to be very likely because the crowds are going to be crazier than ever before, even for their traditional rival games because this will be
Oh
the
yeah.
first playoff game.
I'm excited to see like the first round of the playoffs, like
Oh
literally
yeah,
at home. That's really cool. I love that they're doing it though with the first round, that it's a home game.
yeah, definitely.
Let me
Shub,
ask you guys, how do you feel about my team?
I think you have the best team.
Really?
Um, I think you have the most upside on your team for sure. Ohio State, I mean, I think they're a great run to potentially like win the Big Ten. Utah's clearly like the front runner in the Big 12. Texas A&M is a good value pick. I don't know if they make a playoff, but they're at least like right there to potentially maybe sneak in if they everything clicks. Penn State, I like to make the playoff as like a later team. Miami has upside to potentially win the ACC and make the playoff. They've got a great team this year. Same goes for Iowa State. And then that Liberty pick is elite because when we look at the other options at the G5 level, Liberty is like far and away the most favorable option because they have such a light schedule. They have a better team relative to what they play. And because of that, they're probably going to be the highest ranked G5 team, which means you're going to get a playoff spot. They may get boat raced in the first round, but you're going to get
Yeah.
an extra point for getting a playoff team and a conference champion. So I think that Liberty thing could be something that teeters this in your favor at the end very narrowly.
Yeah, Liberty is definitely a format darling for how we do this because yeah, obviously their schedule is so easy and they're the best. They're the only good program in the Conference USA. They should completely just boat race that conference year in and year out. And so yeah, it's definitely a high G5 floor team. But do I think they are the pure best team in the G5? No, I don't even think so. But it's format. This is the format here gives Liberty a ton of value even though I think that there's like three or four, maybe five other G5 teams that I think are actually better than them. But yeah, you're right. And yeah, I do like I think my only issue is that outside of Ohio State, I don't really have a team that I think has national championship upside. I don't know if Penn State does. And then the rest of the teams that I drafted, I don't know if they can really cut down the nets at the end of the year. Whereas I look at Zan's got, I think, two, maybe three of them. And then Team Bot's got two in Oregon and Texas. I think Team Bot's 1 and 2, Oregon and Texas. That's pretty dang good. Um, so let's talk about Team Bot real quick before we wrap this up. I think Team
Team
Bot,
Bot's got a good team.
yeah, I
I don't
think
believe in Team Bot's first two picks.
you don't.
I've watched Dylan Gabriel in more plays for the last 2 years. He doesn't have a deep ball. Okay, Dan Lanning doesn't run a deep ball throwing offense, so he's supposed to fit right in. Every, but I I'm not sold on that, and I've already told you I'm not sold on Texas. I don't see either one of those in the final four.
So I do agree with you that Gabriel and Ewers are not going to be they're not going to be like high end NFL starting quarterbacks, but they are very good college quarterbacks. Compared to last year, yeah, they weren't the best quarterbacks in college football, but this year with all the guys that got drafted last year, I feel like this year those guys like become the new best quarterbacks in the league in college football by default, but it is a very low bar. I do agree with you there, but
And Team Bot has a lot of college or not a lot of conference championship potential here with UTSA, Toledo, James Madison. And I also really like that SMU pickup. I know they looked a little shaky against Nevada in week 0, but I mean ultimately I think that team has the ability to improve and like potentially compete in the ACC. I mentioned that in win totals. So I think there is a good opportunity to pick up a P4 spot there. SMU is a great flyer for how late the bot got them. And then also Mizzou is great value. I said like if everything goes well because their schedule is very favorable, they could even find themselves in the SEC championship game and potentially in the playoff. Because even if you lose the SEC championship, you're probably in the playoff. Um, so yeah, I think Mizzou is a great value pick. I think Oregon as well. And then who knows with Florida State? Florida State can still win the conference. They can
yeah.
still put it together. So I mean, yes, I mean Team Bot is down a point there, but ultimately they could make it right back if Florida State wins the conference and gets into the playoff. So there's a lot of potential. And then Big 12, Arizona's going to be one of the better teams in the Big 12, potentially win it. I mean, they got a great quarterback, receiver is going to go in the top 15. Yeah, I mean, Team Bot's got a lot of upside.
I mean, I was going to mention Arizona. I love that pick for Team Bot. And then Oklahoma. I mean, if Jackson Arnold ends up being a stud, then like, I
Their
mean, I
schedule's
know their
just
schedule's so
tough.
tough, but like that could
Yeah.
still be like an 8-4, 9-3 team if Jackson Arnold like ends up being a stud in his first full year as a starter.
And
And I mean, that
with
defense is going to be really good.
their
Venables, I
defense
know
is going to be
how you
really
feel
good.
about that team Boomer, but I think Venables got a top 10 defense on his hands this year. It's just
Yeah,
the schedule is so
Oh yeah.
tough.
Oklahoma's going to have a great
Oh yeah.
defense
I
this
think they
year.
probably got a top 3 SEC defense, and nobody knows it. Very few people know that. That's going to be that good. And as far as the offense, yeah, we don't know because Arnold could turn out to be a Spencer Rattler,
Yeah.
another 5-star quarterback that we were expecting to win the Heisman, but he doesn't. And he's had a shaky bowl game, shaky spring game, shaky fall camp. So yeah, I mean, he could get it together, or he might get it together next year.
Safe to say
I
the
know.
defense is going to be the king of the Sooners this year for the first time. When's the last time you could say that Oklahoma was carried by their defense?
I
It's been a
think
while.
2013, so I think 11 years.
Dang. Yeah, it's a good identity to start your first year in the SEC. Very fitting.
That's the identity that you need to be in the
Yes.
SEC. I mean, defense
Yeah.
wins championships, especially in the SEC. So, yeah, man. I mean, Oklahoma's limiting factor is Jackson Arnold. I mean, simple. I mean, they've got a good group of wide receivers coming back, a lot of production. Sawchuk looks to improve this year, and he was already pretty efficient last year. I really like what OU has. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about their O line a little bit. I think relative to what OU's O lines have been in the past and how good they've been, I think this is one of their weaker O lines that they've had in their first year in the
Yeah.
SEC. So that concerns me a little bit, and for Jackson Arnold's sake, and from a confidence point, like if he's getting absolutely plowed in the backfield in year one of the SEC, and he's already been kind of lackadaisical and limited snaps, you confidence is a big thing in these games and in the projection of someone's career. So that's something that kind of concerns me for Jackson Arnold. But if he can overcome all that, I think they're in a great spot.
I agree. I just don't. He's not going to be a Shador Sanders getting sacked 50 times. It's not going to be that bad. So,
Well, I mean,
but it
Shitter
could be.
Sanders intentionally takes those sacks so it doesn't
Yeah,
hurt his
that's
stats.
that. Yeah, there's something fishy going on there. Um, yeah, so I think safe to say that Team Bot is making me sweat a little bit. I think Team Bot, maybe they don't have the national champion on their roster, but I think it's gonna be a good team. I don't think Team Bot is gonna be a team that just ends up really sucking. I think they're gonna be in the mix till the very end for winning this whole thing. So I'm a little worried about that. I'm not gonna lie. I think it played out very well for the computer. And yeah, I'm excited. So guys,
Where do you think you're going to finish, Shoob?
well, see, after hearing Zan's take, I kind of think I'm kind of liking my team here. But then again, I do like Zan's team a lot. I think I just lose out to Zan this year. I think Zan finally breaks the barrier and wins it. But I'm gonna say I
Team Bot
finished
looks
close
kind of,
second.
I don't know, man. Team Bot's upside. Like, what if Oregon ends up winning the Day Natty? Or because in my predictions, I have them winning the Big Ten, man. What if that
It's true.
happens?
Then Team Bot might, like I said, Team Bot might win this thing. Like I think this is going to be the most competitive year. I think that this year there is like I think everybody drafted pretty well. I don't think there's going to be any like really bad team. So I'm worried. I don't.
Yeah,
I
and
think my
Team Boomer might
three-peat.
have got the Big 12 champion over there with Oklahoma State, quite potentially. And he's got Kansas State too, so he's got like two of the better teams in the Big 12 if you're not getting Utah or Arizona. So I mean, he's got a good chance to get at least one team in the championship game. I mean, he's got other Big 12 dogs in there too, but yeah, I mean, I think you might have the Big 12 champion there, Team Boomer. So
Yeah, that
I
might put
like
me
that.
over into third place. That's what I'm aiming for. Third place.
It is possible. You don't necessarily have to have the national champion on your team to win this thing. You just got to have a good overall team, a
Yeah.
good overall body behind you.
National
Yeah.
champion's only like a 1-2 point swing, so I mean, you can still win without it.
So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But let us know in the comments what you guys think. And also, if you are interested in joining us next year, I kind of want to open up the floor for this challenge. I would like to potentially have other people that have, the same knowledge, or at least that are watching this. You got to really love college football, I think, if you're watching these types of videos. So let me
Especially
know
if
in
you're
the
this deep.
comments. Yeah, let us know in the comments if you'd want to join us next year and take part in this challenge. I think there's only two requirements. One, you got to have somewhat of the same breadth and depth of knowledge of college football, and two, just be a nice person. Just that's all we're asking. Nice, respectful, and we'll open up the floor for you guys. So if you want to join this, and again,
How
leave
did
a
I
like,
get in
leave a
here?
comment. It's a requirement for only some people. I'm kidding. All right. Well, that'll conclude this video. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day.